Well, you mentioned the House managers. We've heard from 8 of the 9. Who do you think has made the most compelling case of them?
It's terrible. I've been watching. I don't know her name. She's from the Virgin Islands.
Stacey Plaskett, who we just heard from a couple of times today,
Yes.
but just heard
yes,
from.
Yes. I think she's. I love the way she delivered, and she just has this regality to her. She's like a queen. I think I was most impressed with her presentation.
Okay. All right. Jamie
Yeah.
Dupree, who covers Washington, D.C., tweets this out. 4 things we learned today. Speaker Pelosi was evacuated entirely from the Capitol complex. Officer Goodman may have saved Mitt Romney's life. The majority leader, Schumer, and his security detail had to run from rioters. And the Vice President Pence was holed up just off the Senate floor with attackers in the halls. Those are 4 things new today revealed by the House impeachment managers. Let's listen to Eric Swalwell, Democrat, one of the impeachment managers, talking about that moment with the then minority leader, now majority leader, Chuck Schumer.
The mob had been in the building for more than 15 minutes. This new security footage of the senators and staff leaving the chamber will be displayed on the screens. It is silent. You cannot see it in this footage, but quick-thinking Senate floor staff grabbed and protected the electoral ballots that the mob was after. Those of you who were here that day will recall that once you left the Senate floor, you moved through a hallway to get to safety. That hallway was near where Officer Goodman had encountered a mob and led them upstairs and away from the Senate chamber. You know how close you came to the mob. Some of you, I understand, could hear them, but most of the public does not know how close these rioters came to you. As you were moving through that hallway, I paced it off. You were just 58 steps away from where the mob was amassing and where police were rushing to stop them. They were yelling. In this security video, you can see how the Capitol Police created a line and blocked the hallway with their bodies to prevent rioters at the end of the hall from reaching you and your staff. Because this is security footage that you have not seen before, I want to play it again. The top of the screen is the other end of that hallway where the mob has amassed and the officers are rushing to protect you. Additional security footage shows how Leader Schumer and the members of his protective detail had a near miss with the mob. They came within just yards of rioters and had to turn around. Here in this new video, you see Leader Schumer walking up a ramp. Going up the ramp with his detail, he'll soon go out of view.
Let's listen to Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He's at the microphones.
In my situation, I just want to give tremendous credit to the Capitol Police officers who were in my detail. Like the rest of the Capitol Police officers, they are utterly amazing and great, and we love them.
Senator, do you have any sense of how close this could have been to being so much worse?
Majority Leader there reacting to the video that you all were just watching, the replay of new surveillance footage made public today during the second day of the impeachment trial. You heard Eric Swalwell, one of the House managers, unveiling that Capitol surveillance footage. He's 40 years old, elected in 2012, and a Democrat from California. And you just saw the Majority Leader thanking the police and his security detail for that day. We're asking all of you your reaction to what you heard from the House managers. We have yet to hear from the president's lawyers. We will do so in a couple of days, and they will get the same amount of time that the House managers get to present their case. But what have you heard today, and what have you make of it? Jelani in Southfield, Michigan, Democratic caller. Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for taking my call. I was watching the impeachment trial last year, and I tried to call and didn't get through. Unfortunately, we're at this position yet again. Kind of scary. I just want to quote one of my good friends. He's a really good historian. I really like what he says, and he said, if I'm starting to run out of quotes and relevancies in history, we have a problem. And it's very scary to think that in my very short 20 years that we've had a president who has tried to overthrow the government, who has tried to corrupt another government in Ukraine to influence our 2020 election, and then try and get away with it like it's free. Republicans have a responsibility and a moral duty to convict Trump. There's no way he can get away with this without corrupting the system of America.
Jillian, what do you think today was the most powerful piece of evidence?
When I can't remember her name, the delegate from the Virgin Islands.
Yes, Stacey Plaskett.
Her. She has been streamlining everything that we've seen throughout the January 6th riots. Everything that's been leading up from all the House managers, really. And I believe one of the senators said they were all building a case against Trump brick by brick, which I could not find a better metaphor. He led this riot. They are proving how this affected everybody, and I could not be more proud of Democrats at the moment.
All right. Priscilla in McAllen, Texas. Priscilla, what do you think? Priscilla, good evening. What do you think?
Good evening. It's been quite a day, hasn't it? I voted for Bush. I voted for McCain. But lately it seems like the party of the GOP has turned into the party of Trump. And it's unfortunate to see personal loyalty as such a requirement in this day and age. It's been shocking to see a gallows elected. It's been shocking to see officers risking their lives for elected officials doing their job. It's been a very difficult period of time for all of us, I think, a time when we were more at odds with our neighbors than ever before.
Priscilla,
but I think the evidence speaks for itself.
And how did you vote in November?
In November, I voted against Trump.
Because?
Because I felt that his party was no longer standing for any principle other than Trump. Because I felt that the American people need to stand for America, not for a king.
And how did you vote in 2016?
In 2016, I didn't vote, and I regret it.
Priscilla, what would be your message to senators who have been sitting in that chamber today listening to the evidence?
That the American people care about America. They care about their well-being. That the American people are people, just like the senators are, with families and lives. And that we see that they were at risk for doing their jobs, in the same way that many of us have been put at risk doing our own jobs, especially during a pandemic. Do your job.
Okay.
And don't let this person put us in danger again.
Priscilla, you would want them to convict the president and then bar him from running for office again?
I would wish for them to bar him from office. Any other penalty, well, that needs to be adjudicated in a different court, perhaps. But certainly this person needs to be barred from office.
Okay.
He serves himself, not other.
And those are two separate actions, according to the Washington Post. Now, when this is all said and done at the end, they will hear closing arguments, and then it'll take a 2/3 majority of the Senate to convict the former president. If they do so, then they would take a vote on barring the former president from future federal office, and that would be a simple majority, meaning 51 votes are needed. So here is the schedule. We heard from the House managers today. They have a couple of hours or more remaining in their first 8 hours. Tomorrow they will get another 8 hours for a total of 16. And then you will hear from the former president's lawyers. They will get their turn Friday and Saturday, 8 hours each day to make their case defending Mr. Trump. And then on Sunday, we expect the senators to get to ask questions of the lawyers. And then it'll turn to whether or not they want to call witnesses. That will be a vote. From reporting today in Washington, it seems both parties are reluctant to call witnesses. Then we could see closing arguments early next week, followed by that vote on whether to convict or acquit. Phil in Kansas City, Missouri is a Republican. Phil, what did you make of today?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Phil. What did you make of today's evidence?
Well, I'm kind of old school, and I've seen a lot of stuff going on this past year and two, and I just can't believe what's going on with Mr. Trump.
What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is, like you're talking to everyone else. This year I voted for Trump, and in the past election, I did not vote for Trump because of the person he is and the person that filed bankruptcy for three times, if I remember right, in the past to represent the United States of America.
Okay, Phil, let me ask you, do you think the president is guilty of inciting violence?
Of course I do.
Why?
And I would like to go another step beyond that, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut upon that.
Okay.
Because anyone that charges the government, to me, that's like treason. And I could be off a little bit on that, but that's how I feel.
Okay.
After seeing everything and everybody doing what I've seen on TV and what the senator or the Republican of California, I was just appalled at what I've seen in this country and the separation of what this man has done to us. Now,
All right, Phil, I'm going to go on to Stephen, who's in Kernersville, North Carolina, Democratic caller. Stephen.
Hey, thank you for taking my call first and foremost. But I was listening to the past couple calls, and Priscilla especially kind of moved me because I feel like she espousing the same sentiments as I would like to say that we would have never been in this position in a country where we have been this divided. And the reason for that is because the racism, misogyny, homophobia, xenophobia has always been on the back burner. And there were certain things you couldn't say until a president such as Donald Trump came into office. And he has he was elected, and now it's as though the Proud Boys and the neo-fascists feel the need, they feel the gratification of, or the grandeur of being backed by the highest person in the land of this country, and so they ran with it, but they lost, and they lost not once but twice. This is not their first loss. This is their second or third, and they're not willing to deal with that.
Okay,
And
Stephen,
just as Trump is not willing to deal with that.
Stephen, let me get your reaction to Scott Wong, a reporter on Capitol Hill for the Hill newspaper, tweeting out this. Some Republican senators say they were moved by the video presentation. Here is Senator John Thune, a Republican of South Dakota, who's in the leadership for the Republicans. The impeachment matters, quote, were very effective. They had a strong presentation put together in a way that I think makes it very compelling. I think they've done a good job connecting the dots. Stephen, what do you think?
I think that's a good sentiment, but that is from one senator, if I'm not mistaken, and we need more than one senator. I think we need a 2/3 majority to actually impeach and make a difference.
Needs 17.
So that's exactly. So that's a good first step, but for the other 49 Republican senators who are willing to turn a blind eye to the horrible crimes of inciting violence of a president, the POTUS, the president of the United States, the highest position in the office of the world, basically, for them to act as though this is the new normal. This is not normal. I've been alive for 40 plus years now, and I've seen Republicans that I've disagreed with and Democrats that I've disagreed with politically, but this has never been normal to actually incite violence because you have a deficiency in your mental capacity to be able to deal with losing.
All right.
And that's what this boils down to.
And Stephen, noting you need 2/3, you need 67 senators. That would mean 17 Republicans have to vote with all 50 Democrats to convict the former president. You've seen in test votes, one of them yesterday, on the question of constitutionality, you did not have enough Republicans side with Democrats on that question. You got enough, the Democrats had enough to move forward with these proceedings, but it does not seem that they would have enough to convict. Now, one of the senators who is open to voting to convict the former president is Utah Republican Mitt Romney. I want to show you from Stacey Plaskett's presentation today, the moment where she talks about how Capitol Police and the law enforcement on Capitol Hill saved his life and others.
At approximately 2:13 p.m., just one floor up, while Senator Lankford was speaking on the Senate floor, Senator Grassley, who had taken over for Vice President Pence, called an unscheduled immediate recess of the Senate. A Senate aide approached Senator Lankford and informed him that the Capitol had been breached. Senator Grassley is immediately escorted out of the Senate chamber.
We'll pause. Protesters are in the building.
Thank you.
Now, while this was going on, Officer Eugene Goodman responded to the initial breach. You all may have seen footage of Officer Goodman previously, but there's more to his heroic story. In this security footage, you can see Officer Goodman running to respond to the initial breach. Officer Goodman passes Senator Mitt Romney and directs him to turn around in order to get to safety. On the first floor, just beneath them, the mob had already started to search for the Senate chamber. Officer Goodman made his way down to the first floor where he encountered the same insurrectionists we just saw watch breach the Capitol.
After seeing that video, Mitt Romney told reporters that he had not seen it before, and he said about Officer Goodman, quote, "No, I did not know that was Officer Goodman, but I look forward to thanking him when I next see him. I was very fortunate indeed that Officer Goodman was there to get me in the right direction. That was new video shown in today's proceedings. Now, you can watch that video and all the other video. If you go to our website, cspan.org/impeachment, you can watch anytime on demand all of the impeachment proceedings. Back to your calls. Stephen in Lake St. Louis, Missouri, Independent. Stephen, have you been watching today?
I have all day, yes.
And what have you been thinking?
Honestly, there's two chief things that come to mind. The first and foremost, that it's insane that we need the future of accountability for the executive depends on finding 17 Republicans who are willing to uphold their oath. And instead of, because there's a chief thing I think people need to know about this is that when the senators go in for the impeachment, the first thing they do is they take an oath to be an impartial juror. And I was reading reports 20 minutes ago, which prompted me to call in, which said that there were reports of Republicans who were doodling and sitting with their feet up, not paying attention at all, basically just being present. How is that being an impartial juror? How can they be an impartial juror if they're not even paying attention? It's crazy to me. The other thing that's really stood out to me has just been really the terror of how close we were to losing our republic. We were, what did he say, 58 steps away? I think it was Swalwell who said 58 steps away from the mob catching up to people, and we could have ended up with a lot of assassinated representatives. It's pure insanity, again, that we have a group of people who call themselves patriots and yet are willing to go and kill our elected officials. How can they call themselves patriots if they want to subvert democracy? That's not patriotism, that's terrorism.
Stephen, why should, in your opinion, they rule, or how should they rule, these senators, do you think? And why? I'm thinking they have to rule for guilty. The reason being that it seems very clear to me from what the impeachment managers have thus laid out that Trump is guilty of incitement between everything that they've done up to January 6th and then the speech he gave on January 6th, which he gave his one little pittance towards peaceful protest in his whatever 1,000-some-odd word speech. Read the transcript if you haven't. It's great, people. He absolutely incited this insurrectionist attack on the Capitol. They have to do it because if this isn't an impeachable offense, nothing is. Who do you think has made one of the more compelling arguments today of all the House managers that you've heard from?
I think they've all done a fantastic job. My favorite thus far has been Swalwell. The last thing that he showed right before break, the unfortunate Capitol Police officer getting crushed in the door. I can't remember his name offhand, but that was powerful. It had me shaking. I'd seen it before, but even having seen it, it still had me shaking. I was afraid for his life. I was afraid for the future of the democracy. I was scared. I was angry. And I mean, I don't know how you can watch these things having happened and not be terrified. This is a scary time. These are scary things that happened. And even weeks later, I'm still shaking about it.
Stephen, we are 4 hours and 30 minutes into the House managers' 8-hour presentation. That means they have, and we don't know if they will take the rest of their time. They get 8 hours today and 8 hours tomorrow. They are in a dinner break. We are waiting for them to return. The Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, said it would be around 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time. When they resume, of course, we will bring you gavel-to-gavel, uninterrupted coverage right here on C-SPAN 2. And you can also watch on cspan.org on our website. You can listen live with this free C-SPAN radio app. Just download that onto your phone, and then on demand anytime, our website, cspan.org/impeachment. You'll find it all there. Adam Kinzinger, who's been a vocal critic of the former president, a Republican from Illinois, tweets out, "The prosecution is compelling. Donald Trump incited and directed the insurrection. He knew what he was doing. I cannot imagine how any senator could vote against removal." So that's Adam Kinzinger, Republican of Illinois. Also, Chad Pergram, who covers Capitol Hill for Fox News, sent this tweet out a little bit before 4 p.m. Eastern Time. His colleague, David Spuns, reports that the FBI Director Chris Wray will testify about the Capitol attack on March 2nd. That will be Wray's first major remark since the attack in January. Let's hear from Andrea in Corona, California. Republican Andrea, welcome to the conversation. Have you been watching today?
Yes, I have. First of all, I would just like to say I'm a Trump supporter, and I think I can probably speak for 70 other million Trump supporters saying that I do not condone violence in any way. I don't condone what happened at the Capitol that day. But I think that we need to get back to the basics here. The question is whether or not President Trump incited the violence. The one thing that I come back to is, and in all the footage from today, there was people that had baseball bats. There's people that had helmets, bear spray, munitions, zip tie cuffs. I've been to a Trump rally, and you don't get into a Trump rally with that stuff. So those people planned that before the speech that Trump gave. And I mean, how can you say that he incited it with his speech if those people came prepared to do that?
So, Andrea, did you see earlier on in the day the argument being made by the House managers was that the president, before that day, in a series of tweets, had retweeted people who said the cavalry was coming to D.C., that they were ready to fight for him, that he was retweeting that type of language, that it started before that. So what do you make of that argument?
Well, I think that the rally was there, and in my, I would have liked to have gone to that rally. There was an unfair vote count. I believe that there was voter fraud. It's unfortunate that that happened at the Capitol, and I think it's actually very convenient for the Democrats that it did, because it took it away from the vote fraud onto the violence and to the riot of the Capitol, which is not where I wanted the conversation to go at all. We needed to talk about fair elections, and that's what that was all about. And we needed to go and we needed to make our voices heard so that the senators understood that we want a fair election and that we don't want things stolen from us. And I'm a reasonable person, and I look at things at all different views, and I've thought about this, and I've looked at it in every different direction, and I have friends that are Democrats, and I have friends that are Republicans, and this is not what we wanted. This is political theater that we're dealing with right now. They could have made a documentary and posted it on any MSN TV station would have played it for him. We've been seeing stuff that has nothing to do with impeachment. We need to go back to why is he being impeached? Because he incited violence. He did not tell us to go do. He didn't tell anybody to go down there. There was over 100,000 people at that rally. All those people were not there for violence. It was a couple hundred people that were there, and the Proud Boys and the people that were in there and banging windows and having baseball bats and that weren't your average Trump supporter. And I don't appreciate being labeled as a violent, bigoted, and all these things that the mainstream media and these Democrats that are up there with their videos are terrible. I don't condone, and a lot of Trump supporters are military. They are law enforcement.
Andrea,
we fear law enforcement.
And we heard your point. You don't condone it. Wondering if you think now that the president should have been more forceful in his denouncing of groups like the Proud Boys.
I think that he did denounce violence. He's denounced violence all summer long. All summer long, he's denounced violence. How many times did he have to say that he was that he wasn't a racist and that he wasn't a white supremacist? He denounced white supremacy. Come on, we've been hearing it. And these people that call on your show and respectfully, I mean, they're watching the TV, and the TV is unfair. It's unfair. You know what's really frightening right now is I'm being labeled that. I have to be afraid to say that I'm a Trump supporter out because the TV has told people that means that I'm a bad person.
So Andrea, you're not
the last 4 years.
What you're watching on TV today, the Senate proceeding, are you saying that's unfair?
No, I don't. What you guys are doing is great, and I think your phone calls are great. I appreciate it. I wouldn't waste my time if I didn't. I just am trying to get my voice out there. It seems like there's been a lot of, calls that are saying that
I understand. Let me just clarify, because it's important to know that the cameras inside the Senate chamber are not our cameras. They're not any media cameras. They are operated by the Senate recording studio, the Senate itself, the chamber itself. And so C-SPAN and other networks, when they're showing you what's happening inside that chamber, they are giving you that feed. We don't have that video feed. We don't have any control of it. Aaron Sheff, who writes for the New York Times, is a staff photographer, puts out this tweet with a picture of members of Pelosi's staff who were barricaded in a conference room, terrified for their lives during the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Watch video from that day during the Senate impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump on Capitol Hill on Today. Let's take a moment. Let's listen to that moment when Stacey Plaskett talks about the Pelosi staffers and what they went through that day.
The mob also went after Speaker of the House, who alongside the Vice President was presiding over the joint session of the certification in the House chamber. The chilling evidence shows that on January 6th, armed and organized insurrectionists trained their sights on Speaker Pelosi. They sought out the Speaker on the floor and in her office, publicly declared their intent to harm or kill her, ransacked her office, and terrorized her staff. And they did it because Donald Trump sent them on this mission. As the insurrectionists got closer, Capitol Police rushed the Speaker from the House floor at 2:15 p.m., mere minutes after the Capitol was first breached. They recognized immediately that she was in danger.
And we've heard from world leaders who say that they look down, they think less of the United States because of what happened on January 6th. And as the House impeachment managers make their case, we're seeing more about the interactivity of what President Trump, then President Trump, was doing and what was going on Capitol Hill. I just want to show you the video again of then Vice President Pence being quickly whisked out of the Capitol by Secret Service. This is video we saw for the first time today. That's Vice President Pence. You'll see him in a second. There he is with the white hair looking behind him, and his family, the Secret Service whisking him out to protect him from a mob that had been yelling, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence." If you look at the timestamp, that's 2:26 p.m. on January 6th, the day of the terrorist attack on the Capitol. Literally at 2:24 p.m., 2 minutes before that happened, Donald Trump, then the president, tweeted, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones, which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth." Mike Pence did not have the courage to do what should have been done. That is what Trump was tweeting literally 2 minutes before the vice president and his family were whisked out of the Capitol for fear that the crowd would kill them, literally would kill them. Former Congressman Paul Mitchell, Republican of Michigan, although now he is now an independent because he's so disgusted with what's happened since January 6th. Paul Mitchell just tweeted, "I cannot believe that Vice President Pence was able to look Trump in the eye or meet with him again after this event. To be honest, if not in the Oval, and I had been VP, I would have punched him in the face and resigned."
Yeah.
That's a former Republican congressman. You
Which
folks
is a
at home
very human response.
You might not know him that well. Not really known for threatening to punch President Trump in the nose before, but this is the kind of emotion that people are feeling. Oh my God, how dare you?
Exactly. And let's just also talk about what happened after that, when it became even more clear to those who weren't inside the Capitol, or even just watching outside the Capitol. The then vice president was in an undisclosed location, and guess how many phone calls he got from the president about his well-being?
That day, none. And the next day, and the next day, and
nothing.
The next day, none.
Nothing.
It took like a week, right?
Absolutely nothing, which is not surprising given everything that we have just seen and heard today. But listen, look, yes, that was all very, very difficult to watch. That was the point. That was the whole point. The prosecutors slash House managers, they don't want this to be easy. They want this to be real. And it's hard to watch because it was hard to live. It was hard to be a part of for all of these members of Congress, the press, everybody who works in that building. And
hold on, I just want to do something for my own purposes here. I'm being selfish. Hold on. I recorded already. I just wanted to make sure that I was recording some hockey stuff. Sorry, guys.
Something that Congresswoman Plaskett, Delegate Plaskett, really effectively landed today. I mean, this was one of the most effective oral arguments I've ever seen. And we together covered the last impeachment where there were big issues. But I thought Plaskett today was better than anything presented at the last entire impeachment trial. I'll put my view, my reporting on that, because she drew the line to the disturbing premise of your question, Nicole. She drew the line for Americans. She drew the line that obviously at least one Republican senator told Angus King, who told you, gosh, I wonder if people are watching. Our team here was reporting this out, and Fox News was covering part of this, but by 5 p.m., they cut away and stayed away so that some of these Republicans' constituents who may look to other networks, I say this not as a competitive note, but a newsworthy one, may not see all of it, but will it go online? Will it go out in the rest of the ether? Because I thought the presentation today drew the line and the link from Donald Trump to the violence, to the election plot, and to the people who came in. And we now can see, and I've covered this, you've covered it, we've watched it together. I'm a bit blown away by the new video evidence, which our colleague Katie Turner and others were reminding viewers of. The video evidence shows how close it was. Senator Schumer, the incoming majority leader, going down one hallway with guns drawn by his security retinue and turning around as they ran into people. Mike Pence going around the anteroom. Mitt Romney, who's a famous person and an enemy on par with Pence, to hear these rioters say it, ushered that other way. And the cops, the police, outnumbered at every turn. It could have been so much worse. And the evidence today did draw that line directly to your question, which is, how does anyone look at this and not see how much evidence points back to the person who summoned the people, who organized the rally, ex-President Trump?
I'm going to try to pull up that video coverage. I'm actually surprised at the Secret Service and that it was released publicly. It is the video evidence of the vice president, his Secret Service detail, and his family being evacuated from the Capitol. It's just, whatever your politics, it is extraordinary to see the second most powerful person in our country's government escorted from imminent danger out of the Capitol, where the threat is attendees from a Trump rally who were sent there by Trump, who said, quote, "I'll come with you." And they're yelling, "Hang Mike Pence." Mike Schmidt, I want to read you what Donald Trump tweeted 10 minutes after that evacuation that we're going to try to show our viewers again. He tweeted, quote, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones, which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands truth, exclamation point. Donald J. Trump, January 6, 2021. Here's the video, Mike and Ari, of the evacuation of the country's vice president, who was there for a ceremonial role. There he is. Turns around. His family's right ahead of him. Mike Schmidt, where's Mike Pence in all this? Donald Trump sent a mob to kill him.
Yeah, I mean, I kept on coming back to this today while watching it, about the idea of, if there was to be one witness, Pence would be that person, just to hear what his experience was like. And what it was like to have the president actually turn this mob on him. It's sort of a remarkable thing, where the Secret Service there is trying to protect a vice president who's had a mob
upset tonight. And Governor Romney...
But Hugh, you keep calling this an unconstitutional process. It is not. I mean, it is not an unconstitutional process. Look, the Senate made that decision. It is not an unconstitutional process. Maybe it'll end up, if you want to take it to the Supreme Court, perhaps they could make that decision as well. But right now, in the way the Constitution governs this, the Senate has all the power to try, and they have made the decision to call it constitutional. I don't mean to pick on you here, but it is not unconstitutional. You may believe that's true. The fact of the matter is it's constitutional.
And many unconstitutional proceedings go forward and are only seen in retrospect to being constitutional. So for 25 years, I've been teaching the impeachment cases. And when Richard Nixon resigned, there was no attempt to impeach and try him afterward, because until very recently, it was widely understood that the impeachment conviction trial, as Judge Luttig, who was runner-up to Chief Justice Roberts to become the Chief Justice, wrote in the Washington Post, it's unconstitutional. Now, there's a difference of opinion, but that they are proceeding does not in any way, shape, or form change the underlying nature of the debate. And that's a legal debate that will go on for centuries. But I'm saying the 44 who said yesterday it's unconstitutional cannot change their mind legitimately tomorrow and say, the video, which upset me, made me change my understanding of the Constitution. Or they would rightly be deemed to have a less than good grip on what the Constitution says.
Oh, for the love of God. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, I had my mic off for that. Thank you. Yes, I got it. They're supposed to be talking now anyway. I'm not even supposed to be broadcasting. That's my excuse. So what I was saying is the Senate, the 44 who voted in the Senate that it wasn't constitutional. Here's how the Constitution works. The Senate has the sole power. The sole power, that's what the Constitution says, to hear impeachments. The Senate itself, with that power, decided that that power extends beyond the service of a president and or other official. They've decided that twice in our history. Once in 1876, once yesterday. Therefore, it's constitutional. And the 44 who looked at it and said, I don't think this is a constitutional thing, but the majority, which is how democracy works, think that it is, therefore it is. By definition. That being said, all the reporting I'm hearing is from people saying they've talked to senators who voted that it was unconstitutional, and they're sticking with that no matter what. So, it's over. But it's interesting to watch, so we'll continue.
Well, I would make an argument. This is not a court case. This is about deciding whether Donald Trump, whether he should be given the privilege of being able to have the responsibility of the presidency ever again, given how he acted in office in this moment. So in some ways, there is no normal court of law here that we're talking about. This isn't about...
It is not a court of law. That's Hugh Hewitt, by the way, conservative. Oh, here we go. This might be it.
President Trump was doing...
Here we go. Let's go... Here we are. Let's go live and play.
Live coverage.
Members of the Senate. Managers Cicilline and Castro will now remind us of what President Trump was doing during the attack. They will show how he continued to stoke the insurrection and refused to speak out against the violence or do anything to stop it. Mr. Cicilline.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, you just heard from my colleagues about the harrowing events that happened here at the Capitol on January 6th and saw that very disturbing video. I'd now like to turn your attention to what was happening on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House. And the truth is, the facts are that on January 6th, Donald Trump did not once condemn this attack. He did not once condemn the attackers. In fact, on January 6th, the only person he condemned was his own vice president, Mike Pence. Condemned, who was hiding in this building, Mike Pence, with his family in fear for his life. In the first crucial hours of this violent attack, he did nothing to stop it, nothing to help us. By all accounts, from the people that were around him, he was delighted. And here's the last thing Donald Trump said that day. And you might remember this from my motions presentation earlier in the week. At 6 p.m. on January 6th, after all the destruction that you just saw, the Capitol Police and the National Guard fighting to secure this building, here's what Donald Trump tweeted. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. He got what he incited, and according to Donald Trump, we got what we deserved. Donald Trump's incitement of this insurrection,
that to me is more powerful proof than everything that happened this morning. That to me is, what did he want? Well, here he is saying, great job, everybody. Good job. Go ahead, head home, take yourself a break, put your feet up, watch some TV. That tells you he's not shocked by what happens. This is what he intended. He watched everything. We know he watched everything.
Including his dereliction of his duty as Commander-in-Chief to defend the Capitol and the people in it, his complete refusal to condemn the attack while it was going on, and his continued incitement of the violence during the attack require impeachment. Now let's turn to then President Trump's conduct that day. I want to start at the beginning when he addressed his thousands of great patriots, as he called them that morning. Around noon, Donald Trump began speaking at his rally just down Pennsylvania Avenue. Even before Donald Trump finished speaking, his supporters began to walk down toward the Capitol, and they were already starting to chant, "Stop the steal, storm the Capitol, invade the Capitol, fight for Trump." And by 12:53 p.m., they had violently forced their way through the barricades here at the Capitol. Now, about 1 o'clock that day, with this chaos just starting, Speaker Pelosi, as the Constitution requires, formally commenced the process by which this chamber certifies the election results. Within 10 minutes, at 1:11 p.m., as if almost on cue, Donald Trump concluded his speech with his final reminder to the thousands gathered there that it was time to go to the Capitol. Let's watch.
And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give, but we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help, we're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much.
Now, you've seen what happened when these supporters, following his orders, arrived here at the Capitol. But I want to look at what happened next. Now, you'll recall during the speech, President Trump said, we're going to the Capitol, sort of suggesting that he was going to go with this crowd.
He
Of course,
said he was.
That was not true. But let's hear what he said.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Capitol!
This, of course, was not true. He did not go with him to the Capitol. He left and went back to the White House. And while he was en route to the White House, violence really began to grow here at the Capitol. And within minutes of Donald Trump's speech ending, there were significant reports of escalating violence that began to surface. Buildings around the Capitol were starting to be evacuated. And by 1:15, an explosive device had been found at the DNC. A pipe bomb had been found at the RNC about 15 minutes earlier. The House Sergeant at Arms had called for immediate assistance. At 1:34 p.m., the mayor of Washington, D.C. called for additional National Guard troops. I won't go through all of the details of the violence that unfolded here. You just saw that. But as we walk through what our commander-in-chief did that day, I want to be very clear about exactly what was happening here at the same time. For 40 minutes, while buildings were being cleared, pipe bombs were being found, his supporters were literally breaching the perimeter of the Capitol and overwhelming law enforcement, and you saw the violence that was occurring. We heard nothing from the President of the United States. We didn't hear anything from Donald Trump until 1:49 p.m., when while all of this is unfolding, President Trump sent out a tweet. This was the first thing he did when he learned the United States Capitol, with all the members of Congress, his own vice president, was under violent attack. And what was that tweet? Nearly an hour after the rioters breached the Capitol perimeter, at 1:49, Donald Trump released a propaganda reel of his Save America speech that he'd given an hour before. I want to be clear. The events I just described, the rioters are breaching the Capitol, attacking law enforcement. The violence is being broadcast.
They should have asked me. I have that. I could have given them that video, which has now been deleted.
All over the television for the whole world to see, including the President of the United States.
Oh, they have it. They have it.
United States. And I want to show you, this is what is happening right before Donald Trump sends that video out again, and as he does it.
Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Even if President Trump claims he didn't know the extent of the violence that would follow his speech, it was now happening in plain view, broadcast on television. His supporters were attacking law enforcement. The mayor and the police chief were calling for help. Members of Congress and the vice president were inside, scared for their lives. And he doesn't send help, doesn't try to stop it, doesn't even acknowledge the attack. Instead, our commander-in-chief tweeted the video of the speech that he'd given before that included language like, "Our country has had enough, we will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. You have to be strong." Those around Donald Trump, as was later reported, were disgusted. His close aides, his advisors, those working for him, former officials, even his family were begging him to do something. Kellyanne Conway, the president's close advisor called to, quote, add her name to the chorus of aides urging Donald Trump to take action. Ivanka Trump, the president's own daughter, went to the Oval Office as soon as the rioting escalated and was, as confirmed by Senator Graham, quote, trying to get Trump to speak out, to tell everyone to leave, end quote. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called Jared Kushner, pleading with him to persuade Trump to issue a statement or to do something. And Kushner, too, went down to the White House after that call. And it wasn't just the people at the White House. Members of Congress from both parties who were trapped here were calling the White House to ask for help. Some members even appealed directly to Donald Trump. These members who had, quote, been loyal Trump supporters and were even willing to vote against the Electoral College results were now scared for their lives. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy repeatedly even got into a screaming match as the attack was underway, demanding that Trump do something, issue a statement denouncing the mob. I imagine many of you sitting here today picked up your phone and tried to reach somebody at the White House to ask for help. This wasn't partisan politics. These were Americans from all sides trying to force our commander-in-chief to protect and defend our country. He was required to do that. Now, the extent of how many people tried to reach the president to get him to act is not known. But what is clear, what we know without any doubt, is that from the very beginning, the people around Donald Trump lobbied him to take command. What's also clear is what Donald Trump, our commander-in-chief, did in those initial hours to protect us. Nothing. Not a thing. He knew it was happening. The attack was on TV. We all know that President Trump had the power to stop these attacks. He was our commander-in-chief. He had the power to assess the security situation, send backup, send help. He also had incited this violent attack. They were listening to him. He could have commanded them to leave. But he didn't. The first critical hour and a half of this bloody attack, Donald Trump tweeted his rally speech and did nothing else. And we know why. We know his state of mind that prompted his utter, complete refusal to defend us. It was reported by those around him. The president, as reported by sources at the time, was delighted. As he watched the violence unfold on television, President Trump was reportedly, and I quote, borderline enthusiastic because it meant the certification was being derailed, end quote. Senator Ben Sasse relayed a conversation with senior White House officials that President Trump was, quote, walking around the White House, confused about why other people on his team weren't as excited as he was, end quote. Trump's reaction to this attack reportedly genuinely freaked people out. I understand why. We just suffered a very serious attack on our country. And we saw it, and the people around him knew it. But when Donald Trump saw it, he was delighted. Now, what President Trump did next confirms why he was so delighted, why he wanted this. Because it shows that his singular focus that day, the day we were attacked, was not protecting us, was not protecting you, was not protecting the Capitol. It was stopping the certification of the election results. The evidence is clear. Shortly after 2 p.m., as the siege was fully underway, then President Trump made a call. This is the first call that we are aware he made to anyone inside the Capitol during the attack. Didn't call the vice president to ask how he could help defend the Capitol. Didn't call the next two in line to the succession of the presidency to check on their safety or well-being. Instead, he attempted to call Senator Tuberville. He dialed Senator Lee by accident. Senator Lee describes it. He had just ended a prayer with his colleagues here in the Senate chamber, and the phone rang. It was Donald Trump. And how Senator Lee explains is that the phone call goes something like this. Hey, Tommy, Trump asks, and Senator Lee says, this isn't Tommy, and he hands the phone to Senator Tuberville. Senator Lee then confirmed that he stood by as Senator Tuberville and President Trump spoke on the phone. And on that call, Donald Trump reportedly asked Senator Tuberville to make additional objections to the certification process. That's why he called. Now, let's be clear, at roughly 2 p.m., when Donald Trump was walking around the White House, watching the TV delighted, and spent 5 to 10 minutes talking to Senator Tuberville, urging him to delay the election results, this is what was happening in the Capitol.
We'll pause.
Protesters are in the building.
Thank you.
Hate to interrupt, but thank you very much, Ruth Ann, for Venmo money. Appreciate that. Everybody, if you want to support the broadcast, there's some links you can do so right there. YouTube has demonetized me because I'm harmful. So if you appreciate the harm that I cause, you can do so right there.
You saw Senator Langford stop speaking and leave the floor quickly in that clip because the insurgents had broken through the barricades and had entered the building. And as these armed insurrectionists banged on the doors, members of Congress were told to put on their gas masks, to put bags over their heads for safety and prepare to evacuate. And Donald Trump was calling to ask a senator to delay the certification process. Let that sink in. Donald Trump didn't get to finish that call. It was cut off because the senators had to move to another location for your security. And thank God they did, because as the call was occurring, the rioters got closer to the Senate chambers. And as we all know now, but for the heroism of Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman and other law enforcement officers who took them in a different direction to the police line, they very likely would have gotten here. Think about that. Armed insurrectionists, guns, weapons, zip ties, brass knuckles, they were coming for us. They were inside the United States Capitol, trying to stop the certification process. The police were outnumbered, but for the grace of God, they would have gotten us, all of us. And our commander-in-chief makes a call about an hour after the siege began, not to preserve, protect, and defend you and our country and the Capitol, but to join forces with the mob and pressure a senator to stop certification. We just can't get numb to this kind of behavior. There can be no doubt as to the purpose of Donald Trump's call, that he was not calling to assess the security threats or to check on the well-being of you or anyone else. Indeed, later on that evening, while all of the destruction and damage still continued, dozens of officers were being treated for serious injuries. Deaths were confirmed. About 7 p.m., the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, made a call. And just in case you don't think there was some coordination, he also called Senator Lee's phone trying to reach Senator Tuberville. We don't have to guess as to what Rudy Giuliani said in that voicemail because we have it recorded.
Yes.
So let's listen to what the president's personal lawyer said on the night of this attack.
To the wrong phone number.
Senator Tuberville, or I should say Coach Tuberville, this is Rudy Giuliani, president's lawyer. I'm calling you because I want to discuss with you how they're trying to rush this hearing and how we need you, our Republican friends, to try to just slow it down.
This was the singular focus of Donald Trump during.
For no reason. Slowing it down would have accomplished nothing. Now, if it's true that they were planning for the DOJ to do something and they were planning for the military to do something, that might have been the purpose behind that. We don't know. We do not know.
During this bloody, violent attack on the Capitol, stopping the certification. Look, as I mentioned, I was a trial lawyer for 16 years. Sometimes you have to ask a jury to use reasonable inferences to piece together a defendant's state of mind. We don't have to do this here. While our country was violently attacked by an armed mob, President Trump not only refused to stop the attack or even address the attack at all, he made clear his focus was the same goal of the attackers he had incited: to stop the certification process and prevent the peaceful transition of power. The only action we know that he took an hour into this attack was to call Senator Tuberville to ask him to delay the certification. This is as clear evidence as I have ever seen of what Donald Trump really cared about that day. Now look, the certification process, as we all know, includes debate and objections. Some of us disagreed, but we came here on January 6th to formally administer the certification process pursuant to our constitutional duties. And at the end of it, Congress certified the results to ensure that we continue to be a country with leaders who are elected by the people, for the people. Donald Trump's objection to the certification are not on trial. But what is on trial is while we were under armed attack and being evacuated, while our law enforcement officers were fighting for their lives, our commander-in-chief was calling not to determine how to best secure the building and the people in it, but to continue to pressure senators to stop the certification process and the peaceful transfer of power. Just as he incited the mob to do earlier in the day. This was a breathtaking dereliction of his duty and of his violation of his oath as our commander-in-chief. Senators, before I hand this over to Manager Castro to walk through the rest of the day, please let me make one final point. These attackers stood right where you are. They went on that rostrum. They rifled through your desks and they desecrated this place. And literally, the president sat delighted, doing nothing to help us, calling one of you to pressure you to stop the certification. It can't be that the commander-in-chief can incite a lawless, bloody insurrection and then utterly fail in his duty as commander-in-chief to defend us from the attack, to defend our law enforcement officers from that attack, and just get away with it. Donald Trump abdicated his duty to us all. We have to make this right, and you can make it right.
Okay, let's jump forward here.
In those first critical
Castro.
hours of the attack, he sent a tweet at 1:49 p.m. where he reposted a video of the speech that incited the attack. And he called a senator to ask him to delay the certification as the senator was being evacuated for his own safety. We left off around 2:15 p.m. At this point, insurgents were inside the Senate and the House, and the Senate had been evacuated for everyone's safety. And as you saw, Vice President Mike Pence and his family even had to be evacuated for their safety. Now, you'll recall,
Castro.
Donald Trump had made Vice President Pence a target. He attacked the Vice President at the rallies, in speeches, and on Twitter. And during President Trump's speech that morning of the attack, he ramped it up again. After privately pressuring Mike Pence in front of thousands in the crowd, he called Mike Pence out 11 times, including saying, quote, "Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of your country. And if you're not, I'm going to be disappointed in you. I will tell you right now." And this was the crowd's response to Donald Trump's days of relentless attacks on his own vice president. By 2:15 p.m., the crowd was chanting in unison, "Hang Mike Pence," outside the very building he'd been evacuated from with his family. Now, even if President Trump didn't know that his inflammatory remarks about his vice president would result in chants of "Hang Mike Pence," by 2:15 p.m., he surely knew. The attack was all over television. They were doing this out in the open. This was a vice president whose life, whose family's life, was being threatened by people whom the president had summoned to the Capitol. And what did President Trump do in response? Did he stop? Did he tell his base, "No, don't attack my vice president"? Even when President Trump knew what his words were causing, he didn't do any of those things to stop the crowd. In fact, he did the opposite. He fueled the fire. At 2:24 p.m., he tweeted, quote, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution. USA demands the truth." Over an hour and a half into the attack, and this is what he tweeted. And he still, even at this point, did not acknowledge the attack on the Capitol, let alone condemn it. Instead, he further incites the mob against his own vice president, whose life was being threatened. Well, some of you may say, well, who was paying attention anyway? Well, that mob was paying attention.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demands the truth.
Wait, what? Hold on.
Demands the truth.
Mike Pence is a traitor?
U.S. demands the truth.
Where did that come from? Who? This might be from a YouTube post. Yeah, Voice of America News. I wonder who added the incorrect spelling.
U.S. demands the truth.
Not important.
Mike Pence is a bitch. Mike Pence is a bitch.
Can I speak to Pelosi? Yeah, we're coming, bitch. Oh, Mike Pence, we're coming for you too, fucking traitor.
Tratter, that's Tratter.
Donald J. Trump sent a tweet out saying that Mike Pence let us down. Mike Pence let us down, people. If you want to get something done, you're going to have to do it yourself.
The insurgents amplified President Trump's tweet attacking the vice president with a bullhorn. They were paying attention. And they also followed instructions. In fact, the insurgents were at one point, as you saw, 60 feet away from the vice president and the vice president's family. Some of these insurgents were heard saying, quote, that they hope to find Vice President Mike Pence and execute him by hanging him from a Capitol Hill tree as a traitor. And then they erected a gallows with a noose. This is what
Gotta hand it to Antifa, though. I mean, look at how much they spent on the flare. Impressive. Look at that. 3 flags. This guy went way out, got the 1776 flag with the skeleton head, skull and crossbones. He's got a Trump flag. Like, when's he going to use that again, right? Really committed to faking everybody out. And thousands of them. Thousands of them. A lot of flair going on there. So good job, Antifa.
Donald Trump incited. Please take a close look at that picture. It harkens back to our nation's worst history of lynching. A president's words have the power to move people
No, it doesn't.
action. These were the results. And why did the president incite such rage against the vice president? He was fulfilling his constitutional duty, as we all were that day. Vice presidents in this country have been carrying out this constitutional duty, overseeing the certification of the election results without incident, without contest, without a word, for the entirety of our nation. It's part of our peaceful transition of power.
It was.
In the United States. And the vice president said he reviewed the Constitution and he could not block certification as President Trump wanted him and was pressuring him to do. He told the president in a letter that morning, a few hours before President Trump's tweet, quote, I will approach this moment with a sense of duty and an open mind, setting politics and personal interests aside, and do my part to faithfully discharge my duties, our duties, under the Constitution. I also pray that we will do so with humility and faith. And the president's response to that statement was to attack Mike Pence while he was with his family under the threat of a violent mob. The vice president was following his faith, his duty, and his oath to our nation. And the vice president and I don't agree on too much in politics, but he's a man who upholds his oath, his faith, his duty, and most of all, upholds the Constitution. And Mike Pence is not a traitor to this country. He's a patriot. And he and his family, who was with him that day, didn't deserve this. Didn't deserve a president unleashing a mob on them, especially because he was just doing his job. As this was unfolding and the crowd grew more violent, the president, of course, was not alone at the White House. And the people closest to him, his family and advisors who saw this unfolding in real time, begged him, implored him to stop the attack. An aide to Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, urged his boss to go see the president, saying, quote, they are going to kill people. They're going to kill people. That's what those around President Trump feared.
They were right.
And still, nothing. It wasn't until 2:38 p.m., nearly 2 hours after the start of the siege, that Donald Trump even acknowledged the attack. And when he finally did acknowledge the attack, here's what he said. On the right, you'll see what had been happening prior to that tweet and as he sent the tweet. And on the left, you'll see exactly what he tweeted.
His job is just reading the rules.
I'm going to stop you there for just one moment because we do have some breaking news. We want to bring in congressional correspondent Chad Pergram as this is just all developing right now. Chad, I understand the Capitol is now on lockdown.
They're definitely fired up. The chant, by the way, I heard the most today was "Fight for Trump," and that's clearly what many of them feel they're doing here.
That's what our president saw unfolding in real time, broadcast all over television. And this is what he tweeted at 2:38 p.m. Quote, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They're truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." And much has been made of the fact that in this tweet, he says, "Stay peaceful." Senators, stay peaceful? Think about that for a second. These folks were not peaceful. They were breaking windows, pushing through law enforcement officers, waving the flag as they invaded this Capitol building. This was a violent, armed attack. Stay peaceful? How about stop the attack? Stop the violence. Stay peaceful? How about you say, immediately leave? Stop. And he said, please support our law enforcement. How about he actually support our law enforcement by telling these insurgents to leave the Capitol immediately, which he never did.
Well, he did later.
Because
Go home
the
in
truth
peace.
is, he didn't want it to stop. He wanted them to stay and to stop the certification. And his failure had grave and deadly consequences. By 2:45 p.m., the warnings were tragically proven correct. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an officer as she tried to break through a glass door to reach the Speaker's lobby. At this point, the pleas to Donald Trump, publicly and privately, grew even more desperate. At 2:54 p.m., Alyssa Farah, a former strategic communications director, begged the president, quote, condemn this now. You're the only one they will listen to for our country. Mick Mulvaney, the president's former chief of staff, his right-hand man at one point, tweeted at 3:01, the president's tweet is not enough. He can stop this now and needs to do exactly that. Tell these folks to go home. He can stop this now. Tell these folks to go home. At 3:06 p.m., Rep. McCarthy appeared on Fox News. Here's what he said.
I could not be sadder or more disappointed with the way our country looks at this very moment. People are getting hurt. Anyone involved in this, if you're hearing me, hear me very loud and clear. This is not the American way.
He's saying on Fox News, which the president watches, this is not the American way. Stop the attack. Representative Gallagher at 3:11 p.m., while secured in his own office, posted a video to Twitter.
Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off. Call it off.
And then, when the president didn't answer his pleas on Twitter, Representative Gallagher went on live television.
I mean, this is insane. I mean, I've not seen anything like this since I deployed to Iraq in 2007 and 2008. I mean, this is America, and this is what's happening right now. The president needs to call it off. Like, call it off. Call it off.
Representative Gallagher, you see there, said he'd not seen anything like this since he was deployed in Iraq. The message around the president was clear from everyone. You need to call this off. Stop it. But does he? No. His next tweet was not until about 3:13 p.m. Once again, it's important to consider what was happening between Donald Trump's 2:38 p.m. tweet and his next tweet at 3:13 p.m. You'll see footage from the attack during that time on the right and Donald Trump's tweet on the left.
We've been informed that protesters have penetrated the Capitol.
This is my fucking building. Hey, we got a fucking attitude problem over here.
I tell you, the sentiment in the streets is really getting to a different level. This is spinning out of control. This is turning violent. This is getting dangerous.
Stand up for America. Now, one idea. Don't touch me, don't. Get the fuck out
This isn't 10 minutes into the insurrection. This isn't just after his speech earlier that day. That's what our commander-in-chief saw happen, and that was his response. You'll notice one of the things he says to his mob, to these insurrectionists, rather than to stop or to leave, was to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what? Thank you for shattering the windows and destroying property. Thank you for injuring more than 140 police officers. Thank you for putting in danger all of our lives and the lives of our families. How about instead of thank you, Donald Trump on that day acted like our commander-in-chief and stopped this as only he could and told those people to leave. And here's what former Governor Chris Christie, his very good friend, said after that tweet.
Pretty simple. The president caused this protest to occur. He's the only one who can make it stop. What the president said is not good enough. The president has to come out and tell his supporters to leave the Capitol grounds and to allow the Congress to do their business peacefully. And anything short of that is an abrogation of his responsibility.
He's right. Chris Christie is right. We know how Donald Trump acts on Twitter and otherwise when he has a message to convey. In fact, I asked you to remember those tweets earlier this morning when he yelled on Twitter, "Stop the count." When he wanted to incite his supporters to show up on January 6th, President Trump tweeted 16 times between midnight on January 5th and his noon rally speech the next day. 16 times to get them to do something he wanted. And his message in those 16 times was clear. Fight, stay strong, be strong. But when the violence started, he never once said the one thing everyone around him was begging him to say. Stop the attack. he refused to stop it. And as Governor Christie and Representative Kinzinger and others made clear, only Donald Trump could have stopped that attack.
You know, a guy that knows how to tweet very aggressively on Twitter, you know, puts out one of the weakest statements in one of the saddest days in American history because his ego won't let him, you know, admit defeat.
He was not just our commander-in-chief, he had incited the attack. The insurgents...
He was continuing to try and overturn the election. Remember, we have the 7 p.m. phone call from Giuliani recorded. That Adam Kinzinger was saying that at 4 p.m.
We're following his commands. And we saw when they read aloud this tweet, attacking the vice president. And they confirmed this during the attack, too.
We're outnumbered. There's a fucking million of us out there, and we are listening to Trump. You're the boss.
Senators, ask yourself this. How easy would it have been for the president to give a simple command, a simple instruction, just telling them, stop, leave? This was a dereliction of duty, plain and simple. And it would have been for any president who had done that. And that brings me to my next point. You heard from my colleagues that when planning this attack, the insurgents predicted that Donald Trump would command the National Guard to help them. And there's a lot that we don't know yet about what happened that day. But here's what we do know. Donald Trump did not send help to these officers who were badly outnumbered, overwhelmed, and being beaten down. 2 hours into the insurrection, by 3 p.m., President Trump had not deployed the National Guard or any other law enforcement to help, despite multiple pleas to do so. President Donald Trump was at the time our Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. He took a solemn oath to preserve, protect, and defend this country. And he failed to uphold that oath. In fact, there's no indication that President Trump ever made a call to have the Guard deployed or had anything to do with the Guard being deployed when it ultimately was. And shortly after 3:04 p.m., the acting defense secretary announced that the Guard had been activated and listed the people he spoke with prior to this activation, including Vice President Mike Pence, Speaker Pelosi, Leader McConnell, Senator Schumer, and Representative Hoyer. But that list did not include the president. This omission of his name was reportedly not accidental. According to reports, quote, Trump initially rebuffed requests to mobilize the National Guard and required interference by other officials, including his own White House counsel. And later, quote, as a mob of Trump supporters breached police barricades and seized the Capitol, Trump reportedly was, quote, disengaged in discussions with Pentagon leaders about deploying the National Guard to aid the overwhelmed U.S. Capitol Police. President Trump was reportedly, and I quote, completely, totally out of it. He made no attempt to reach the National Guard, and it was Vice President Pence, still under the threat for his life, who reportedly spoke to the Guard. President Trump's conduct confirms this too. At no point on January 6 did Donald Trump even reference the National Guard. The only thing that we heard connecting the president to the Guard was from his press secretary, who tweeted about the Guard being deployed at the president's direction over half an hour later at 3:36 p.m. And we have seen what Donald Trump does when he tries to take credit for something. And yet, even when the National Guard was finally deployed, he didn't even acknowledge it. In fact, he didn't say a word about the National Guard the entire day. Think about that. The bloodiest attack we've seen on our Capitol since 1812, and our president couldn't be bothered to even mention that help was on its way.
There's new stuff.
These insurgents had been attacking our government for over 4 hours by that point. And we may have been the target, but it was the brave men and women who protect our Capitol who were out there combating thousands of armed insurgents in a fight for their lives. And that's who Donald Trump left.
You can go from sexy to boring really quickly in LP's world.
Entirely unprotected.
I'm guessing you're single, LP. What the hell's a Canadian flag doing in there?
And this is hard to watch, but I think it's important we understand what the Capitol Police were facing, how severely they were outnumbered. Chief, whose job it was to protect and defend them, was just watching, doing nothing for hours, refusing to send help. If he wanted to protect these officers, if he cared about their safety, as he tweeted about, he would have told his supporters to leave. He would have sent help right away. And one brave officer was killed.
False flag.
Others took their lives after the attack. More than 140 police officers were injured, including cracked ribs, smashed spinal discs. One officer will lose an eye.
I mean, that's dedication. For the he's like the one Antifa guy that doesn't quite get it. Guys, I got the flag. Let's storm the Capitol. Make it look like MAGA. Dude, that's a Canadian flag. It was on sale.
Another was stabbed with a metal fence stake. They were completely and violently overwhelmed by a mob and needed help. And our commander-in-chief, President Trump, refused to send it. Senators, you've seen all the evidence so far, and this is clear. On January 6th, President Trump left everyone in this Capitol for dead. For the next hour after President Trump's 3 p.m. tweet, he still did nothing. Not until 4:17 p.m., over 3.5 hours after the violence started, did our president send a message finally asking the insurgents to go home. On the right, you'll see what happened that day in the hours leading up to his pre-recorded video. On the left...
Joaquin just has no gravitas. There's no power here. They should be showing the clips, and after every clip, or every few clips, Joaquin should be looking at the senators and saying, "Fight like hell, or you're not gonna have a country anymore."
Left, you'll see his message. Let's watch.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
And thanks for stopping by.
This is the first time our commander-in-chief spoke publicly at all since the attack began, over the 3.5 hours after it started. And these are the entirety of the words the president spoke out loud to the American people or to the attackers that entire day. Nowhere in that video, not once, did he say, "I condemn this insurrection. I condemn what you did today." Nowhere did he say, "I'm sending help immediately. Stop this." Here's what he said instead. "I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen. Even after all the things we witnessed, even after all of that carnage," he goes out and tells the same big lie. The same big lie that enraged and incited.
What would have been so much better if he was doing even a moderately good Trump impression, reading that. And that's what I would be doing if I was there. Folks, I think the bottom line is here, send me to Congress and I will fight. I will fight like hell. I probably won't. Send me to Congress anyway.
The attack. He repeated
only the Senate, though. I don't want to be in the House. Too many people.
Did this while the attack was ongoing and while we were still under threat. And here's what else he said. "Go home in peace. We love you. You're very special. Senators, you were here.
We love you.
You saw this with your own eyes.
You're very special.
You faced that danger. And when President Trump had an opportunity to confront them as the leader of us all, as our commander-in-chief, what did he tell them? We love you.
You're very special.
You're very special.
You're very special."
This was not a condemnation.
Condom.
This was a message of consolation, of support, of praise.
I just can't be president.
And if there's any doubt that his supporters, these insurgents, took this as a message of support and praise, watch for yourselves.
Good.
Donald Trump asked everybody to go home. He just put out a tweet. It's a minute long. He asked everybody to go home.
Why do you think so?
Because, dude, we won the fucking day. We fucking won.
How did we win?
Well, we won by sending a message to the senators and the congressmen.
Yeah,
we won by sending a message to Pence, okay? That if they don't do as their oath to do, if they don't uphold the Constitution, then we will remove them from office one way or another.
I suspect you recognize that man. You'll hear him say that we won the day. Who won the day? We know that at least 5 people lost their lives that day. The House and the Senate were in life-threatening danger, and so was the Vice President. And think of everyone else here as well. Who won on January 6th? That's not a win for America, but it is a win for Donald Trump unless we hold him accountable. Now, a little over an hour after that video, the brave members of law enforcement secured the Capitol, and we as a Congress got ready to continue certifying the results of our free and fair election. A half hour after that, President Trump issued another tweet in case there was any doubt as to whether he was happy with the people who did this, as to whether he had incited this. He commemorated what happened on January 6th. At 6:01 p.m. on January 6th, he tweeted, quote, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who've been badly and unfairly treated for so long," ending with, "Remember this day forever." My colleague, Manager Cicilline, started with this tweet because this tweet shows exactly how Donald Trump felt about what happened on January 6th. These are the things that happened. He's saying this was foreseeable. He's saying, I told you this was going to happen if you certified the election for anyone else, and you got what you deserved for trying to take my power away. Great patriots, go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. He's saying to them, you did good. He's not regretful. He's not grieving. He's not sad. He's not angry about the attack. He's celebrating it. He's commemorating it.
Yes.
This is the entirety of what President Trump said to the public once the attack began. 5 tweets and a pre-recorded video. On the day of the most bloody insurrection we've faced in generations, our commander-in-chief, who's known for sending 108 tweets in a normal day, sent 5 tweets and a pre-recorded video. That is the entirety of President Trump's public statements from when the attack began until he went to bed on January 6th. That's all he did, despite all the people we know who begged him to preserve, protect, and defend. That was our commander-in-chief's response. He began the day with, quote, our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore. And that's what this is all about. And he ended the attack letting us know that we got what he forewarned that morning. We will, of course, each of us, remember that day forever, but not in the way that President Trump intended. Not because of the actions of these violent, unpatriotic insurrectionists. I'll remember that day forever, because despite President Trump's vicious attempts throughout the day to encourage the siege and block the certification, he failed. At 8:06 p.m., the Senate gavelled into session, and the counting of the electoral votes continued. About an hour later, the House followed suit. And close to 4 a.m., after spending a significant part of the day evacuated or on the floor or hiding, this great body fulfilled the will of the people and certified the Electoral College vote. And I'm proud to be part of Congress. I'm proud that we ensured that the will of the American people finally prevailed on that day. And I'm proud that I and everyone in this room abided by our oath of office, even if the president didn't abide by his. And President Trump, too, took an oath as president. He swore on a Bible to preserve, protect, and defend. And who among us can honestly say they believe that he upheld that oath? And who among us will let his utter dereliction of duty stand?
Well, he's packing up. Got a PayPal a little bit earlier from sales person, not
Mr. President, the managers are prepared to recess for the evening.
They're about to shut down. Actually, let's just make sure that this happens. This is probably what's going to happen. There won't be an objection to it, and then I'll read what Sales wrote. She wrote a nice note that you know what? I don't know if Sales is male or female, so I'll just say they wrote a nice note, and I'll read it to you after things wrap up here.
And to finish our opening statement tomorrow.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Majority leaders.
Pursuant to Impeachment Rule 16, I make a motion. Statements were attributed to me moments ago by the House impeachment managers. Statements relating to the content of conversations between a phone call involving President Trump and Senator Tuberville were not made by me. They're not accurate, and they're contrary to fact. I move, pursuant to Rule 16, that they be stricken from the record.
Call him as a witness.
Pursuant to Senate Resolution 47, Section 4, parties' presentations are not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution.
So they won't be stricken from the record.
The chair.
Mike Lee is the phone that Giuliani called and left a message, and reportedly Trump called earlier thinking that he was talking to Tuberville. So we know that the message came from that phone. At least that's what the press has reported. Mike Lee has said previously that that's what happened, so I'm not really sure why he's objecting to this.
Couldn't hear what he said.
Somebody just said I couldn't hear what he said.
Mr. President, Mr. President, right here, we might as well hear clearly what the ruling of the chair was. So if you would repeat that.
Of course, I will. And pursuant to Senate Resolution 47, Section 4, the party's presentations are not limited.
It's on. We can hear him.
Pursuant to Senate Resolution 47, Section 4, parties' presentations are not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution. The senator from Utah has appealed that ruling. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
Have you? And the yeas and nays have been requested for sufficient.
And what is the question? Is it, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? Is that the question?
Yes.
Whether the ruling of the chair with respect to
No.
And what, may I ask, is the ruling of the chair? My point was not about whether it's appropriate for them to make characterizations. My point was to strike them because they were false.
The question is whether the ruling of the chair that Senate Resolution
Not wearing a mask, by the way.
47 applies to this situation is correct.
The question is whether Senate Resolution 47, Section 4.
I just want to interrupt this. I've been watching a little bit of the Australian Open, which is tennis down in Australia that they're doing right now. And guess what? Hardly anybody is wearing a mask. They're done with coronavirus because they kept locking stuff down. They're out there. They're in a stadium. It's not at full capacity, but there's 5,000 people in a 10,000 person stadium, and they're all sitting together and cheering and going nuts for their Australian guy. Guy's name is Kyrgios. He's half Aboriginal, half Greek, and they're loving him, and they're making all the noise, and they don't have face masks on. Why? Because they followed the science and they used lockdowns.
It is correct. The party's presentations are not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution.
Mr. President, that is not my motion. You've ruled on a motion. You've ruled on something that was not what I moved. What I asked was statements were attributed.
How is Mike Lee not understanding this? The motion is to strike his comments from the record. The ruling is that his comments are allowed, that the parties are not limited to not having that on the record. I know it's confusing. It's a double negative. But basically, Patrick Leahy, who is presiding over it right now, has to interpret the rules. Now, the Senate gets to vote on the ruling. But they're not even understanding, but I don't want it in there. Okay, but they're allowed to have it in there.
Attributed to me repeatedly, as to which I have personal knowledge because I am the source. They are not true. I never made those statements. I asked that they be stricken. This has nothing to do with whether or not they're based on depositions, which they're not. It's simply based...
Rand Paul sitting beside him, not talking, no mask.
Based on the fact that I'm the witness. I'm the only witness. Those statements are not true, and I ask that you strike them.
Okay, take a vote.
President.
Let him rule.
Mr. President.
Doesn't it look like the president of the Senate, Patrick Leahy, is the statements? They're not even statements. It's just that he received a phone call. He handed his phone off to Tuberville. heard the president tell Tuberville, hey, slow things down if you could, and then had to get his phone back from Tuberville because they were being evacuated. That's what the conversation was between Mike Lee and Tommy Tuberville, because the president kept calling his phone thinking that it was Tommy Tuberville's phone, the new senator from Pennsylvania, because Tuberville's in Trump's camp and wants to slow things down. And it was also the recorded message from Giuliani later in the day at 7 p.m.
What is it? The yeas and nays.
So it looks like Patrick Leahy has an egg cup, is what he has as his gavel. And I really want a hard-boiled egg now. I think that's the long and the short of what's going on here.
Asked for on an appeal.
Mr. President.
Now, the ruling on the floor is the parties can put whatever they want in their presentation. That's the ruling, which is in the rules. He's saying, no, I didn't say that. But he's not a witness currently. So, Patrick Leahy, as president of the Senate, as presiding officer, doesn't have any power. The Senate, he can just make a ruling, but it's not a ruling. He's saying this is what the rule says, and then the Senate gets to vote, which is why it's not a big deal. It doesn't. I could be the presiding officer of the Senate. It doesn't matter.
Vote on the appeal of the ruling of the chair that this.
Now, the Senate parliamentarians sit around here. They know the rules, and so they're advising Patrick Leahy right now as to what he can or cannot do. Typically, the role of the presiding officer is just to read what's handed to him. Pursuant to Rule 27A, stop being such a dick-faced baby.
Is...
Come on.
I'm in trouble with the mic, I'm sorry. The yeas and nays have been asked.
Someone said, come on. That could have been me.
The yeas and nays have been
See, I could be a senator. I could do that.
asked for.
The yeas and nays have been requested.
Let him explain.
Okay, see the little teacup he has here? It's not. It's solid marble, but I'm getting hungry for some hard-boiled eggs, people.
Please let him explain, Mr. President.
Okay, you know what? We're going to just pause that, and there's going to be a vote. Thank you very much, Chef Robert. Sending money through the Cash App. Do not send money through the Cash App unless you already have it, because I want to try something, an experiment. I want to give you money. Chef Robert apparently has the Cash App. So thank you very much, Chef Robert. The other one I wanted to touch on was from Salesperson. And let me read that as well, because they wrote something that I thought was nice and germane for today. Thank you for everything you're doing. My daughter and I watched your broadcast on January 6th, and it felt like a haven during the insanity. That's good to hear. I'm glad that it did, and you people are my haven. So if you have the Cash App, you can send me money through the Cash App. If you don't have it, don't download it yet.
Why is it false? What was not false? What was false about it?
Oh, now they're discussing the statement itself. What was false about the statement is what they're asking, which is better, I think, than having the yays and nays. Let's get to the bottom of it.
President, I ask unanimous.
Oh, Rob, that was you. Thank you very much, Rob. It says sales. Oh, does your email, do you use that email for sales? Like, do you sell something? And if so, what do you sell? I have $10 to buy something.
To answer the senator's question.
That's how the economy works, according to Republicans. I'm just going to trickle that $10 down.
Order under Senate Resolution 47, Section 4. Party's presentation not limited to the record provided for in Section 1 of that resolution. And that has been appealed. The yeas and nays have been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Nobody can hear him.
Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barrasso.
They don't know what they're voting on.
Mr. Bennett.
Well, point of clarification.
That's Schumer.
What is the question?
So we're getting it because we've got the TV feed, which is different than what they're hearing. It's a pretty big room. They can't understand what Patrick Leahy is asking for here. Okay, let's jump ahead here. What happened? That's the end of the stream. Hold on. Let's go back a little bit. What happened? Okay, we're going to have to jump to live TV here, folks. Give me a second, and I will pull something up that's going to work for us. Show me what's doing. Okay, we'll go. This should be recorded. Let's find out. Oh, it's already there. Let's try. Okay, here. Let's try this. This is Joy Reid. Let's go back a little bit here and see if they actually did have a vote on that.
Civil rights leaders back in the 1960s. He could have sent that force.
Oh, it's right on the hour. Dag nabbit. No, it's not. What is happening with everything? The world is falling apart, people. Lindsay Pearson, thank you very much. LP just sent some money as well. It says for everything. Not everything. I appreciate that, LP. Thank you very much. You'll be bored of me in 10 minutes. Okay, let's go back to this and see if we can rewind a little bit on this. Come on. Okay, I have previously endorsed YouTube TV. I'm taking that back now. I've tried to tell it to record the second Trump impeachment trial on CNN about 6 times, and it just doesn't. It says it is, and then it just doesn't. And now we're stuck in a situation where we don't know what happened with the roll call. We don't know if Mike Lee's comments are on record. What we do know is that they've broken for the evening. In fact, we do know that Congress has been broken for years. So thank you very much for that, Lindsay. Multiple dings. Thanks to Rob and salesperson. Who is Rob? I feel robbed. Let's see. Action required. Oh, hold on. I gotta do some action. Okay, that's not you guys. That was just letting me know that you guys have sent me the Cash App, so I appreciate that. I will address that later. Let's just make sure nothing else happened in the meantime. Let us actually pick up. We wanted to hear Leahy explain the. I wanted to hear him explain the question too, but the broadcast ended. Let me see if I can get any more out of this. They're booing. Let's go back. Murmur.
Mr.
Objection, clerk call.
We're not allowed to here. Question. Point of clarification.
Okay, clarification.
What is the question?
This is Chuck Schumer. He's the leader of the Democrats. He is the majority leader in the Senate. At random, I swear to God, I did try and skip it because I thought we would have something here. We'll find out in a second. I'll tell you what, I will skip you. I will skip you right now at random. You don't touch anything.
We're not allowed to here. Yes?
The rules may say that they're not allowed to have a vote at this point in time.
I suggest the absence of a quorum while we work this out.
Clerk will call the roll. Objection, clerk call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Schumer saying he suggests an absence of a quorum, which means that there won't be, you can't have a vote if there's fewer than 50 senators in the room. I don't know how many senators are in the room right now, and it's also a suggestion of an absence of quorum, which means the Democrats could stand up and walk away, and then there wouldn't be enough for a quorum. You can't have a vote without a quorum, which is 51 senators. And
Mr. Barras.
The senators are all supposed to be in the room. I'm not sure why Schumer suggested that.
So.
But you can also do a roll call to ensure a quorum. So I wonder, I don't know this, but I bet you senators can decide they're just not going to answer, and then there is no quorum. Because that's the kind of dicks that senators are.
Mr. Bennett.
They're trying to do a roll call. Oh my God, at random. You
This
are
is
asking
Blackburn.
for it. Here we go. Come on. Anytime. Anytime. And C-SPAN guy's like, well, you know what? My quorum's over. This is fascinating stuff, guys. I'm so sad that I tried to skip it. At random. Woo! And this is why I don't run for Senate. Plus, nobody would vote for me.
Mr. Blunt.
Okay. She's really, really trying to call the roll. They're trying to figure out if they can actually have a vote on whether or not Mike Lee's objection can be sustained, even though the ruling is no, it can't. So they're trying to overrule the ruling, which is not really a ruling, it's an interpretation. It's a strange thing. I don't want to get into it, but here we go. Okay.
Mr. Booker.
I think maybe she is calling roll and there's just very, very slow response. Okay, this might be what's... Okay. The senators right now just might be being dicks.
Mr. Bozeman.
I think that's what's going on. I think the senators are just not saying that they're there so that there's no quorum, so that the vote won't count. There's 50 of each party, so if either party decides they're just not going to answer, and she has to wait for them to answer yay or nay, regardless of whether they're there. Well, of course, you can't answer nay to a present. They might just be doing a roll call to see who is in the room. And even though she might be looking at Cory Booker, she has to give him time. Because typically we would hear a yay or a nay after that if they were having an actual vote. But we did hear the senators saying, we don't even know what we're voting on.
The Senate impeachment trial of the former President Trump in a holding pattern right now. As you can see, what we understand to happen is that the House impeachment managers were ready to adjourn for the evening. They were done making their legal cases for the day. You saw Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, ask that the comments attributed to him in a phone call made by President Trump be struck from the record. You then saw the presiding officer, Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont, unclear as to what his ruling was. You heard senators ask for him to enunciate that ruling again. Then he had technical problems. It is unclear right now what exactly they are voting on or if a vote is taking place at this moment. You can see the huddling on the Senate floor. We'll continue to watch.
There's a quorum call underway.
Okay, this is a quorum call. And what the senators are doing, at least the Democrats so far, are not answering the quorum call. So this is where it gets really stupid. So, let's listen.
Without objection, the quorum call. There will be order.
Mr. President, we need order.
Senate will be in order.
Okay.
Consent to officiate the appeal request that I made.
Without.
Withdraw the request.
Wait, before he withdraws.
The ayes and nays.
just call on.
I withdraw the request for the yeas and nays.
Without objection.
Without objection.
Okay, and I withdraw the quorum call and call on the manager, Mr. Raskin, for a brief statement.
Okay, so what happened there? This is the semantics of the Senate. Mike Lee said, hey, I didn't say that. And then it goes to the presiding officer, who in this case is Patrick Leahy, a Democrat, the president pro temp of the Senate. And he read the rules. He was handed the rules by the parliamentarian. And he said, yeah, it doesn't matter if you can object. We can't strike it because the rule says that they can put whatever they want into their opening arguments. Okay? And Mike Lee said, no, I want an up or down vote on the ruling. Because on a ruling that is made in an impeachment trial, the Senate itself gets to decide whether or not they like that ruling. So the president pro temp, or the presiding officer, I should say, doesn't really have any power in an impeachment hearing. So then, because nobody understood what was going on, or just to be a dick about it, or, and this is actually, it's not being a dick, this is how the Senate works. Schumer said, I suggest the absence of a quorum, which means I suspect there aren't 51 senators here. There are. Just from panning the camera around, it looks like the senators are still seated. All the senators have to be there for the hearing. So one senator can say, I suggest the absence of a quorum. So then they have to do a roll call of who is there and who is not there to determine if there are 51 senators present. Okay? Now, the roll call can be called off with unanimous consent, which is basically just saying, can I get unanimous consent on this? If nobody objects, then they just go like, okay, we're calling the roll call off. What happened was that it got to that point after a few minutes where they're going really slowly through the roll call, that it sounded like Mike Lee, and I believe it was Mike Lee who asked for the yeas and nays on the ruling, just said forget about it. Because there was nothing about Mike Lee, what Mike Lee said in the House manager's case, that made any difference to anything. But he's all like, I didn't say what doesn't matter. Okay, fine. So that's what just happened. Now it sounds like Schumer's like, okay, good. Since you've dropped that, I'm going to drop the quorum request. Let's go right back to the House manager. So I think that's what happened. In fact, I'm 87.6% sure that's what happened.
The impeachment manager, Mr. Cicilline, correctly and accurately quoted a newspaper account, which the distinguished senator has taken objection to. So we're happy to withdraw it on the grounds that it is not true. And
okay, they've withdrawn it.
We are going to
repeated it too.
Okay, we're going to withdraw it this evening, and without any prejudice to the ability to resubmit it if possible, and then we can debate it if we need it. But this is much ado about nothing because it's not critical in any way to our case.
You're not the one being cited as a witness, sir.
Okay, so Mike Lee has now changed panties, and we can go on with our lives.
All right. So the manager's issue stands. Mr. Lee has withdrawn his request, and we may relitigate it tomorrow if we have to. I now ask unanimous consent. The trial adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow.
So this is him saying, I'd like to quit. Unanimous consent means anybody can stand up and say, no, we cannot leave. Which at this point, the punches would be thrown.
Thursday, February 11th, and this also constitute the adjournment of the Senate.
The objection without objection, so ordered. Senate stands adjourned.
Unsurprisingly, nobody objected to that. They all want to go home, so they're done. Did he say noon tomorrow? Is that what he said? I believe that's what he said. Let me go back and just confirm that.
Also constitute the until 12 have to.
Yeah, 12.
I now ask unanimous consent. The trial adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow.
Yeah, so we will recommence at noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow, we'll be back at this again, covering that. That's 9 a.m. on the West Coast. Thank you so much to all the Rons and the Shannons and the Ruth Anns and everybody else who contributed today. I really, truly appreciate it, especially since I'm not going to be getting any money off of YouTube for this. LP was asking about stats. earlier. LP said wait, so I'll wait until LP gets bored. It'll be quick. I just want to see the live stats on this. Give me a second and I will look that up. And there's still people. I'll pull up the left screen here. Hold on. Let you guys see this. Can I? I can't. Hold on. I can take off studio mode. Then I can show you. These are the comments at Right Side Broadcasting. They're still broadcasting. Haha, they got caught in a lie. Wow, Dems lied. They quoted a newspaper article. It's not a lie. One called him out for lies, so they lied and got caught. Pants on fire. Again, it's not critical to the case at all that Mike Lee handed a phone to Tuberville. It's not okay. Okay. Good night, producer Joanne. Mark is just going to stick around. Should I just leave the broadcast up until tomorrow? LP says stop. I don't know what now you want us to stop the broadcast. I was getting you some stats, but is anybody interested in the stats today? Let's see. Okay, so that's going away. Let me get rid of the left screen over there. I'll let you guys listen to a little bit of coverage on this right now. Let's see who's talking about what. There's Chris Hayes. We got the Boston Bruins at the New York Rangers down on the lower screen. But let's listen to it. No, we don't want to listen to Tucker. Nobody wants to listen to Tucker. Here's Chris Hayes. And I'll look up the stats while you guys listen to that.
It seemed as though we had seen everything there was to see, but that was not true.
Let's see.
Impeachment managers prosecuting Trump said there would be new, never-before-seen footage, and they delivered with some truly jaw-dropping video, using it to masterfully connect Trump's words and actions to the violence that shattered the seat of American democracy. We're going to play some of that new evidence in just a moment. First, I want to talk about what happened today with my friend and colleague, Rachel Maddow, host of The Rachel Maddow Show. Rachel, you and I were texting a bit during, as we were both watching it, and I don't want to cannibalize your takes for 9 p.m.
Okay, stats for the day. 322 people watched the broadcast live this morning, and 165 of you watched right now. That includes people who come in and come out. This morning's broadcast was over 4.5 hours. This broadcast is already at 2 hours, coming up on 2.5 hours. So that's, about 7 hours of broadcast today. 322 views on the first part of the day. Not too shabby. That's not too many fewer, if that makes sense mathematically, than yesterday. So people's interests are still being held, apparently. Right now, there are 43 people watching. This is just on YouTube. This doesn't include Facebook. I can't get stats on this. That doesn't include Twitch. And it doesn't include, which is very, very small. Very few people watch on Twitch, but they're the cool ones because they can swear. And it doesn't include Twitter and Periscope, and Twitter goes up and down because people tune in and tune out. That's just the nature of Twitter. So there you go. There's your stats. Good job, everybody. Thank you very much for all the contributions that you made today. And a lot of time, I'm not even here, quite frankly. Right now, I'm not here. You guys are just chatting, and you keep each other interested, and that's cool. And should I just leave the chat up for a while, guys? Or, nah, I'm going to shut it down. You guys, I want to limit your time. Let's watch Rachel Maddow together now. Rachel doesn't start for another hour. I don't know if she'll be doing a regular show today. I guess she will. She probably will. Let's hear what she has to say right now, and then we'll end the broadcast.
But I am curious your reaction, sort of broad view of what you saw today.
I've found myself, as I've I let it wash over me all day today. You and I, as you said, we're sort of exchanging our in-the-moment reaction, particularly when we were watching a lot of that video that you and I had never seen before, that nobody had ever seen before. And having watched every minute of what happened today and letting it sink in a little bit here, I think I feel grateful. Because for all the other things this is, and for all the political implications here or lack thereof, I feel like what they have built is a seminal and definitive public record of what happened. And even though it was only a month ago, we have already seen the, dismissal of the seriousness of what happened that day and a revisionism about the president's actions that day and the president's words that day. It was really powerful just to hear post the dinner break from Representative Cicilline and from Representative Castro that on the day of the attack, President Trump never once condemned the violence at the Capitol. And I thought, is that true? I know that eventually he did, but it's true. He did eventually condemn the violence at the Capitol a day after it happened.
Yep.
But that day he never did. And that, again, I don't know what the political implications are going to be here. Like getting inside the head of a Lindsey.
That day he denied that it was happening. Stay peaceful. Remain peaceful. Support the police. He never said that they were being violent.
Graham.
Just that he understands how they feel. They'd had the election torn away from them.
Or a Mike Lee or even a James Lankford at this point is very, very difficult to do. Who knows? We'll see. And the president's defense could be as bad in the days ahead as it was in its first day.
No, for the first time in a long time, I'm having internet problems here. So I guess the broadcast the broadcast just doesn't want to go in. Let me lower my settings here. That's on my end, guys. And it seems to be holding steady now, but it'll come and go. So hold on, let me, I'm going to dial back. Yeah, let me, in fact, let me dial it way back here. There we go. The quality will be lower for a second here. But, yeah, that's on my end, guys. That is, and it's not doing a fantastic job. And this is the first time we've had a problem since you guys came through and got me the AT&T. So, thank you. Yeah, I started running on 1080 a few days ago. So, and that's not really what's affecting this right now. There's that. The thing that I was surprised by, or actually the thing I was grateful for today was one, that there's more of a record and they sort of put it in context of the map of the Capitol building, which I liked. I would have loved it if the map had zoomed out to the area that it was covering and showed exactly how close. This is the door. This is where they were evacuating. This is where this video is happening. This is where the protesters are. In other words, when the terrorist named Ashley Babbitt was shot, I would have loved to have seen on the map, zoom in, that's how far apart they were. When Schumer ran up the ramp, I would love to have seen, zoom in on the map, this is the ramp, this is where the protesters were, and watch them turn around and run back down that ramp. That's how close they are. What I'm more grateful for than that, by a long shot, is that they never got any of the Congress people. The police officer was killed, more than 100 police officers were injured, but can you imagine if they got a hold of a senator or a congressperson or a member of staff, some college intern who it was her third day in the Capitol building? She went to the bathroom, and on her way back, she ran into a crowd of protesters. Can you imagine? I am grateful for the capacity of the Capitol Hill Police and everyone else involved in the protection of the people in the Capitol. Quite frankly, I think it's a miracle that none of them... you know what? I'm not even going to say it's a miracle. I'm saying it's the hard work and dedication of those police officers that were in the... They were in the scrum of things that kept us from... This day was already bad. I can't imagine. I don't want to get into it, but we are... Lucky's the wrong word. I'm just grateful. Grateful. I don't know who Goodman is. Oh, you're talking about the officer? The officer who ran through the Capitol and led them away from the Senate? Yeah, and he was justly promoted. Okay. I think that's. I think we are good to go here for tonight, guys. And now that we've kind of winding things down, I just want to see how many people are still hanging out. So we dropped a few, down to 34 people watching right now. So hopefully you guys are able to join tomorrow at noon a.m. p.m. Eastern time, and we will see you then. The officer guy, yes. Fortunate, yes, we were fortunate. And I feel grateful that that's what happened. fortunate that if some terrorists, had turned down the wrong corridor at the right time, we would be looking at a very, very different situation. But Goodman, the Medal of Freeman or the Medal of Honor, whatever, either the Congress can give him a medal or the president can give him a medal. Either one are the highest honors that a civilian can get. But absolutely, he deserves that. I think just about God. I mean, why doesn't the officer who was getting crushed in the door trying to keep back a sea of humanity, he deserves it too. Hell, give them all medals. So good, man, everybody. Okay, here are some credits for you. We will see you tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to broadcast any more today. If you want to, I'll be live streaming my nap in a few minutes.
Kevin, thanks for that. A lot of the different services let you have watch parties. Amazon does, Netflix does. I think pretty much everybody does. Anyway, I'm not coming back, so you don't have to wait for me.